When we are talking about a symbol, we are talking about a mark or a character used as a conventional representation of an object, function, or process, or even a thing that represents or stands for something else, especially a material object representing something abstract. Uh, from that meaning, we can understand that symbol would be a term, a name, or even an image. But the thing is that the symbolic term is used to represent things that cannot be completely comprehended by our psyche. That is, for example, that is why religions use the symbolic language and express themselves through images. You know what I mean? The symbol is produced by the human being. It is produced unconsciously and spontaneously in the form of dreams. In a dream, many times there is this appearance of elements that are not individual, or not even part of the individual experience of the dreamer. That is interesting to think about, my friends, because uh, when the concept arose in the last century with Freud, he understood those images as archaic residual. So he didn't drive his attention to understand those symbols. But Jung, on the other hand, he saw something there. He called those images archetypes or primordial images. He saw something tricky about them. He understood that something so vast, with such a variety of images and all that, couldn't be passed on through generations. There have to be something, and he called that something the collective unconscious. This great, let's put it here, this great chest of symbols, forms, images that was gathered throughout human history. And he understood that he came out with two types of symbol: natural symbols that would be they will have their origin in unconscious material from the psyche, and therefore there would be an immense number of variations of essential archetype images. In some cases, it could go to the origins of the most primitive societies. That is, for example, the hunter-gatherer. And there are the second type of symbols that are cultural symbols. That are those symbols that were used to express eternal truths. And they are used, for example, in religions. But the things that Jung understood is that each individual must explore his own unconscious. In that art that I'm painting sacred South Korean symbols, more specifically good fortune, prosperity, happiness, and longevity. And we see that the circular form is a pattern in that symbolic expression. That is, the circle expresses the totality of the psyche in all of its aspects, including the relationship between man and nature. And it gives its direction. That would be his extreme and integral totalization. We can see it all over the world, in our history, in our forms, in the world, in the material world around us. For example, now I quote Carl Jung. He said, "Those things could not be invented. They must have had come from came from the depths, the forgotten depths, to express the most elevated perceptions of consciousness and the most sublime intuitions of the spirit, uniting the singular character of modern consciousness with the ancient past of humanity. From that, we can understand that the symbols are a characteristic of our species. Jung even called us homo symbolicus. Everything is symbolic. We just need to look around so we can see that, you know? But we need to focus on the patterns of reality so we can understand those patterns. And like I said before, we are constantly producing symbols. And those symbols, they reflect who we are. And we can take from those symbols answers for things that are haunting us. That is, when we understand how everything works, we can, for example, look within ourselves and correct those patterns that are not working anymore. Of course, it's not easy, but it's one of the greatest and most important actions we must do. We must understand our unconsciousness. After all, everything is mandala.